And let me tell you that this session is about error correction. So that is the focus today. It's a very important topic, and it's part of every TEFL course, CELTA course, CERTISO course, because error correction is an integral part of English language teaching. And the beauty of today's session is that we're going to be very practical about it. So forget about, theoretical stuff and all that malarkey. We're going to focus today on what you need to do in a classroom, right? So we're going to take a very practical approach towards this session. Wonderful. Right, so let me start. And I have here at the very beginning 3 quotations, and these 3 quotes are related to error correction. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to read the quotes and think about which one you agree with and why. So take your time, just read and see which quote, okay, is closer to your heart. Okay, take your time. Rawan Usama.
Yes, hello, Mr. Shady.
Hi, Rawan.
Yes, number 3 is the best one for sure, because it's totally fine to do mistakes, as they always learn from their own mistakes when they are corrected.
Okay, well, that's an interesting opinion. Okay, I'll comment on that when I hear also another opinion. Let me go to Manar Al-Alfi then. Long time no see, Manar.
Hi, hello. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, it's been a long time, yes.
Yeah, I know. No, always happy to see you, Manar.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
So, which one is closer to your heart?
I'm sorry, I just read the first one. I haven't read the other 2. I've just joined.
Okay. Take your
But of
time.
course, not the first one. Not the first one, of course. 3, yes, the third one.
Why?
Your question is which one I agree with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Because we're human, we make mistakes. Students make mistakes, and actually I encourage students to make mistakes. I tell them it's okay to make mistakes because you're here to learn. My job is to correct you. Your students could correct you. There's no problem. So I always encourage them to feel free about making mistakes. So no problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, again, we heard 2 wonderful opinions, one by Rawan and one by Manar. And actually, I totally agree with them. And let me tell you why. Let's go through these quotes one by one. If we read quote number 1, it says errors need to be avoided at all costs. I don't want my learners to pick up bad habits. Now let's think about it. How would you do that? Errors need to be avoided at all costs. What does that mean? I mean, who can avoid errors at all costs? It's impossible. So again, that proposition itself, is not attainable. You can't do it. You can't avoid errors, because as long as you learn in language, it means that, students lack a lot of things. And as Manar said, we're human beings, and human beings make mistakes. It doesn't matter whether you're a student or a teacher. All of us make mistakes. The second part, I don't want my learners to pick up bad habits. And again, that was a belief, okay, from the past. And let me tell you quickly the story behind it. Because in the past, okay, there was this theory, which is behaviorism. And behaviorism affected English language teaching a lot. And behaviorism is a theory about forming habits, okay? Like, for example, imagine that you're bringing food to your cat. And every time you bring food to your cat, you produce a sound. Then what happens that the cat starts forming a habit. Then when she hears you producing that sound, she runs for the food. So this is simply, what behaviorism is. And then it affected teaching. So people started saying, if you make a mistake and that mistake is repeated, then it will turn into a habit. And then because of that, they wanted to avoid mistakes. But again, I mean, that's not doable. So number one, that's a very bad quote. So we don't agree with that one. Two, I feel bad correcting my students' errors. It's judgmental and demotivating. Again, I feel bad correcting my students' errors. You shouldn't. You shouldn't be feeling bad about correcting your students' errors. It's part of your job. Not only that, some students would be upset if you don't correct them. Can you imagine that? Like they see you listening to their conversations, and then they say at the very end, "Hey, you didn't tell me how my performance was. I want to know my mistakes." And many students would say that. They would say, they would complain against the teacher that he didn't give them feedback. So students need that. So they need your error correction. And then it said it's judgmental and demotivating. Well, it depends on how you do it. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So you can do it in a way that would make it judgmental and demotivating, or you can correct errors in a very good and professional way. Right. The last one is the one that Rawan and Manar agreed with, and I add my voice to them as well. Errors are a natural part of the learning process. But not only the learning process, it's a natural part of us as human beings. We make mistakes all the time, right? So that's number one. Then again, and as Manar said, she said, I encourage my students to make mistakes. So I say, Shadi, do you agree with what she said? I say, yeah, because when you make your students feel that errors are fine and mistakes are fine, you know what happens? Their level of anxiety goes down. So they're not anxious anymore. And if your students are not anxious in your classroom, their level of production and accuracy goes up. So amazing, eh? And that's what we want. We want the students to be safe in our classes. That's what we want. Because when they're safe, they have the courage to speak and share and produce language. And that's what we want. The second part is, and as teaching material, they're really useful. Very true. Very true. Because again, you're teaching your students, and what do you notice? You notice that your students are making mistakes in the present perfect. What does that mean to you as a teacher? You can design the following lesson to focus on present perfect. So you can take your students' mistakes and turn them into lessons and actual material. You can take their mistakes and turn them into find, okay, the error and fix it. So you can actually take the actual errors and turn them into an activity. So what we can sum up this slide, we can sum up this slide in simple words. We can say error correction is okay. We're fine with it. And at the same time, errors are okay. It is okay for students to make mistakes because this is natural. Now, let me take you to this slide here, and we've got a list of mistakes, and I want you to look at this list for a while and try to discover where the mistake is and what type of mistake is it. Let me do the first one so that you fully realize what I want you to do. And again, so let me hear, listen to someone who would answer number one. Who would love to answer number one? Raise your hands if you. Okay, so let's go to Fatma Ali. Can you unmute yourself, Fatma?
Yes. I think the first sentence is about the wrong usage of the tense. So it has to be past simple, not present perfect, because there's a time expression, which is basically yesterday.
Thank you. So she said that there is a problem with the tense. It should be past simple. She's right, because we have yesterday, and usually past simple is used with a definite point in time. Okay, so she recognized the mistake and she mentioned the time. It's a grammar mistake because tenses go under the umbrella of grammar. Wonderful. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to spot the mistake and tell me under which umbrella this mistake should go. Is it grammar? Is it vocabulary? Is it this or that? Take your time. And please, once you finish checking the 6 mistakes, raise your hands. Okay. So let me go for Meher Mensi. Can you unmute yourself, Meher? Let me help you. Let me just, yeah. Can you unmute yourself now? Give it a try, Meher.
Yes.
Okay, Meher. So what about number 2, Meher? Can you find the mistake in what is going on?
Number 2, I think number 2 there is a vocab mistake.
Which one?
Yes.
Yeah, what is the vocabulary mistake?
Chesty. Sorry?
Chesty, right. Maybe,
Chesty?
maybe. Okay, I'm not going to answer that now. I'll listen to another opinion. Thank you so much for your Meher. Let me go to Iman Gamal. Can you unmute yourself, Iman?
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Shari. So I think
What
it's a
about-
punctuation mistake. A punctuation mistake before but.
Could
If
be.
anyone has another
Right.
opinion. Because
okay,
it's just
I'll
a
tell you what
compound sentence.
okay.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I think about this one, which is number 2. Let me help you. Look, my friends, it says to a parent. It means that a teacher is talking to a parent. And when you talk to a parent, can you actually use the terms chesting and ICQs? No, because this type of language is to be used between teachers, not parents. When you talk to a parent would not understand CCQs or ICQs or chesting or the complicated terms that we use, or you say the TTT framework or text-based presentation. This is language that is supposed to be directed to who? It's supposed to be directed, okay, to teachers, not parents. So that's a mistake in what we call register. And register is the professional language that is related to a specific job. So, I mean, doctors cannot use their own language when they're talking to normal people because normal people would not understand. Teachers, the same thing. You can't use the language of teaching when you're talking to people who are not specialized in teaching. So this is the mistake in number 2. So the mistake in number 1 is grammar. But the mistake in number 2 is different because that is register. Now let's go see. And let me give the floor this time to Muhammad Akram. Muhammad, what do you think? Unmute yourself, Muhammad.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I think in number 3, it's a vocabulary mistake, word boundaries, because of the interference of Arabic. He said, and that's a very common, I saved the terms, not memorized or studied. Because we have the word yahfaz.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, right. I mean, Muhammad Akram is right about that. Look at what he said. He said 3, there is a problem with vocabulary choice because of Arabic. Because I saved all these terms. Now, it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be, I memorized all these terms, without the definite article, of course. I memorized all these terms, not I saved. Okay, right. So then number 1 is a grammar mistake. Number 2, a register mistake. Number 3, a vocabulary mistake. Now let's continue and let me give the floor to نجلاء فتحي معقولة في السيشن معانا. نجلاء, please unmute yourself.
Hi, doctor. I think number 4. Hi. Is a spelling mistake for being here today?
Is it a spelling or is it more about pronunciation? Okay, because
Maybe.
I mean, and
Yes.
yeah, because again, my friends, I mean, and I heard that before. in a presentation, someone was saying, I'm really honored for being here today. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine that kind of mistake? Right. And it was, what did you imagine? PhD presentation. Like someone is standing in front of doctors. I'm really honored for being here today. Holy moly. So that's a pronunciation mistake, of course. My goodness. Now, let's go to number 5. Let's go to number 5. And I'll read it for you and then ask you what kind of mistake it is. We should buy some for nature. We should buy some for nature. Let me go to Mahmoud Eid. Unmute yourself, Mahmoud.
Hello.
Hi, Mahmoud.
Furniture, I think this is a spelling mistake because of the capital letters in the middle.
No, I'm making those capital because look at how I say it. We should buy some for nature. Is this the correct pronunciation?
Right?
Yes. Excellent, Mahmoud. Yeah. So that's a problem with what we call word stress, because instead of for nature, it's not supposed to be for nature. It's supposed to be furniture, right? So again, so number 1, grammar mistake. Number 2, register mistake. Number 3, vocabulary mistake. Number 4, pronunciation mistake. And number 5, stress mistake related to pronunciation as well. The last one, I don't know where is he. So I want someone to tell me where the mistake is. Yusuf Zeki, what do you think?
Hello, how are you?
I use it.
I think here it's what we call embedded question. So it is supposed to be, I don't know where he is. The problem here is, like fast language interference when it comes to translating from his own language into the target language.
Thank you so much. That's a very good answer. Look at what Yusuf said. He said that's a kind of an embedded question, right? And sometimes people would call it indirect question. So it shouldn't be where is he? It should be where he is. I don't know where he is, not where is he. And again, that a word order problem. A word order problem. Abdurrahman Gamal is saying, I think there is a grammar mistake in 3S, which is the definite article, I believe. Right. Now let's move on, my friends. Now, so there are types of mistakes, and we talked about mistakes can be of different types. Now let's talk about when to correct, and that's a very important question for every English language teacher. Do I correct, or delay correction, or ignore correction? And I'm giving you here 4 lessons to think about on the screen, my friends. So what I want you to do is to look at these 4 lessons and decide, am I going to correct or delay correction or ignore correction? Take your time, think about each one. Oh, Mariam is saying lessons or situations. Let's say, Mariam, situations taken from lessons, okay? Okay, so let's start a discussion. Right. And let me give the floor to Saeed Muhammad. Please unmute yourself, Mr. Saeed.
Hello, it's me. Saeed is my son. Okay.
Okay, what's your name then?
Hasna.
Asma. So Asma, what about lesson number 1? The teacher is saying, why are you late? The student is saying, my grandpa dies yesterday. So will you correct, delay, or ignore?
I think I should correct because it's big mistake about the past or present.
Okay. So what you're telling me, okay, so this student will say, my grandpa dies yesterday. So I said, no, wait a minute. Your grandpa died yesterday. Everybody, repeat after me. His grandpa died yesterday. This student, might kill me if I do that, because his grandpa died, and all his grandpa died, and all I care about is correcting his grammar mistake. So my advice would be, of course, ignore. Never do that. You know what I mean, right? So because as teachers, we have to respond to students' reality, to students' content, to students' messages, not only grammar. You know what I mean? So if a student is saying, I'm sorry, but I have an accident with my family yesterday, and then forget about the use of have now, and say to the student something like, oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you all right? Are you fine? Right? So here, you ignore the mistake completely. Don't fix it. Not the time for it. Respond to the message, because this is more important. Okay? Good. Lesson 2. Suma Khalid is saying, can I just repeat the sentence with the correction while showing empathy? Well, yes, you can. However, you don't have to correct, right? You can ignore simply. But yeah, why not? As long as you don't show that to students that you are focusing on grammar or something. Right, lesson 2. The student is saying, when this happened, I felt bad. And then the other student said, yeah. Okay, so do we correct, delay, or ignore? So, and let me, wait a minute. Let me give the floor to Abdulaziz Hassan. Can you unmute yourself, Abdulaziz?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Dr. Shadi. How have you been?
Hi, Abdulaziz.
Well, I think I'm going to delay correcting the mistake here. The reason is he's feeling bad now, so I really have to make sure that he's feeling good to take the correction, to not make him feel bad more,
Well, I agree with you, Abdulaziz, that I'm going to delay, but not for this reason. So I'll be looking for another reason. Let me go to Hanan. Yes, Hanan? From Morocco. Hanan from Morocco, I believe. Can you unmute yourself, Hanan? Oh no, it seems that she's having a problem. So let's go to my friend Yusuf Ghanim. Yusuf, yes? Can you unmute yourself, Yusuf? Yusuf!
Yeah, hello?
Oh,
okay, I'm
yes,
here.
hi, Yusuf.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think that I'm going to delay the correction because they are students and they are talking together. If the students talking with me, then I will correct them.
Excellent answer. I love that. Look at what Yusuf said. Very smart answer. He said the students are talking together. And when the students are talking together, if you interfere, okay, I would say not all the time, of course, but most of the time, if you interfere, you know what happens. You are shaking their confidence. Because imagine this, 2 students are speaking together, and whenever they make a mistake, you go in with your head and you're like, no, 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 no. This is not how you say it. It should be said this way. And every now and then, you pop up your head and you correct. No. If your students are speaking together, just take notes. Leave the notes with you and deal with mistakes later. So delay. So the first one, ignore. The second one, delay. Let's go to lesson 3. And the conversation is between a teacher and a student. The teacher said, why do you love Cairo? The student said, because it is a cosmopolitan city. Because it is a cosmopolitan city. Okay, right. So let's see your opinions. And let me go to Mr. Giro. Can you unmute yourself, Giro?
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
So he's using. I will delay, of course, but at the same time, he having what he's using a weird adjective. So I have a way of correcting errors. Like after I finish my class, start putting them on the board, asking anonymously without the person who made the mistake saying his name, and I ask him to do that as a first rule of my class, so the person who made the mistake doesn't by mistake tell that he did it. So and figure out what is cosmopolitan with them.
Right. Look, I would say I will have to disagree here for a reason. Because again, it's the teacher talking to the student, which is the plenary, exactly like what is happening here. This is the plenary between me and you. You're talking to me, I'm talking to you. And when it is the plenary, it's fine to correct. And if the student said, because it is a cosmopolitan city, I mean, you can correct in so many different ways. One of them is to say, because it is cosmopolitan. I love that. So you can just repeat it correctly. And there are so many other ways that we're going to talk about today. But it's fine to correct. So, number one, ignore. Number two, delay. Number three, correct, because you're talking to the student. It's not a student talking to a student. It's not a freer practice or a speaking task. And let's go to lesson 4. What is the answer for the first listening question? Sam goes to the school every day. Now, as you see, we've got a mistake here. It's supposed to be goes to school. So, are we going to correct, delay, or ignore? And let me give the floor to Dalia Berber. Can you unmute yourself, Dalia? Can you raise your voice a bit? It's too low. Dalia. Dalia, ما احنا سامعينك. Okay, seems she has a problem with the mic. So let's go to
يا علي مش سامعيني يا
سمورة
علي
محمود.
يا علي
لا خلاص سمعناكي وسمعنا علي خلاص دلوقتي. Yes, Dalia.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, Dalia. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I will correct it because my aim here is to listen. It's a listening question, so I want the students to to answer with a correct answer. What did he hear? What did he listen to?
Okay, so you will correct. Okay, let me listen to another opinion. Let me go to Muhammad Sufi.
Hello, Professor.
Hi, Muhammad.
How are you, Mr. Shadi?
I'm fine. Thank you so much.
Okay.
How do you feel about lesson 4, Muhammad?
I feel I'm going to delay to listen to more questions or more answers from other students. Maybe it's not a good answer, so maybe other friend or another student can answer it in a correct way. So I will make the other students answer it well. So this is a self correction. I mean,
Okay.
So I will delay.
Right. Well, I would say I disagree with the answers I received on this one. For me, I will ignore. Why? Because I'm not teaching grammar. As you see, it says, what is the answer for the first listening? It's a listening question. So all I care about is that my students would give me a good answer for the listening question. So if he gave me a good answer, but with a grammatical mistake, I don't care because I'm not teaching grammar now. Because we have to separate. If you fly with every grammar mistake, your student would make in the classroom, then again, I mean, there would be no time left for the main aim to be covered. So you have to systemize yourself to ignore sometimes, and it's absolutely fine. Why? Because maybe in a coming lesson, I will be focusing on teaching definite articles. Hanan is saying it depends on my objective. She's absolutely right. What is my objective today? It's a listening lesson. Why would I fly with every grammar mistake? You know, it doesn't make sense. Good, good, good. I love that. So, my friends, now to sum up, in lesson number 1, you will ignore because you must have feelings. Ha ha ha. Number 2, okay, you will delay because actually fluency is prioritized. In lesson 3, you correct directly, no problem, immediately, because again, it's you talking to the student, so that's the plenary time. And for number 4, you ignore because it's not your focus, it's not your aim. I mean, you're just asking a question about listening. Good, good, good. Now, let's come here. And we have, my friends here, 6 sentences with mistakes on the board, okay, on this slide. And next to each sentence, there is a way of correction. And my intention now is to show you the 6 ways, okay, or the 6 techniques of correcting errors in the classroom. So let's get practical about it now. So we talked about the different types of mistakes. And we talked about when to correct, when to ignore, when to delay. Now it is time to talk about the different error correction techniques. And let's read the first one. I traveled from three years. And it's a common mistake. So we have something that we call finger correction. So you can go like that. You put your hand right in front of your students and you say, I traveled from 3 years. I traveled. Okay. So once you point at this finger, okay, I traveled from 3 years, students know that there is a problem with from. So they try to correct it, and then, okay, you go on. Now, so we call that finger correction, right? We call that finger correction. And I'm going to give you time later to think about its advantages and disadvantages, right? Okay. Now, second one, a student said, you was working so hard. You was working so hard. Terminology, like what? You can look at your student and say, you was working so hard. Grammar? So you say grammar, grammar. Okay? Right. Oh, I can see that some people are responding to what Yusuf wrote in the chat box. Don't be surprised, because Yusuf is speaking out of experience, because a candidate made a mistake and called this way with that name that Yusuf wrote in the chat box. So it's a true story, right? So it's called again finger correction, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. So again, second one. So the first one, you put your fingers up there, you put your hand, and you point to the mistake. Second one, you use terminology. For example, if it is a mistake in pronunciation, you say pronunciation. If it's a mistake in grammar, you say grammar. If it's something in tenses, prepositions. So you use the terminology. Let's go to the following one. I love this sentence. Amazing, amazing. When I am on Facebook, I chat with my friends. When I am on Facebook, I chat with my friends. I chat with my friends. يعني حاجة تقرف الصراحة. Right. Okay. Then how you can correct that? You can say, repeat and pause. You can say, when I'm on Facebook, so you want the students to say chat instead of chat. because shat is the past of shit, right? So you want him to say chat. When I'm on Facebook, and you stop just before the mistake, and you try to elicit the answer from your student. When I'm on Facebook, so he knows that the mistake is in chat. ممكن بقى ربنا يرزقك بطالب يقوم يقول لك اي شات برضه. مفيش اي مشكله. تقلست انت وهو يرزعها لك في خلقتك تاني. No problem. But it happens here, right? Okay, good. Number 4. Ice cream is my favorite dessert. صراحة يعني. Ice cream is my favorite dessert. Okay. Then there is also, you can ask a question when you are correcting. Like you can respond to this student this way. Ice cream is, he said, ice cream is my favorite dessert. And then you say, you mean your favorite place is a desert? So that's very smart, because you play as if you were confused. And you ask a question for more clarification, you see? So the student is saying, ice cream is my favorite dessert. Of course, it's supposed to be dessert, but he didn't say dessert. He used a whole different word, which is desert. Now you play confused because of this word, so the student would know how this mistake affected the whole meaning. We call that ask a question. Okay, right. Let's go to the following one. What I enjoy in Hurghada is the wonderful beaches. What I enjoy in Hurghada is the wonderful beaches. And my friends, you might be surprised, but I heard a mistake like that in a presentation by a student before. And it was in front of everyone. He said, I love Russell Bar. I love because it is full of bitches. My goodness, my goodness. So again, don't think that this is my invention. This is based on true stories, eh? Right. Now, one way of correcting, we call it reformulation. In reformulation, my friends, you repeat what was said by your student, but you repeat it correctly. So look at this. What the student said, what I enjoy in Hurghada is the wonderful beaches. And then you can say, oh yeah, I mean, it's full of wonderful beaches, I'm telling you. Yeah, I mean, I know. I love the beaches in Hurghada. See, reformulation. You repeat the word, but correctly. We call that reformulation. Okay. Now, last one. One student said, she is used to watch horror movies. Okay, he's supposed to say, she's used to watching, right? Then one thing you can do is delayed correction. In delayed correction, this is what you do. You take that sentence, you put it on the board, and then you say, I heard someone say she is used to watch horror movies. Now, there is a mistake in this sentence. Where is it? And then you elicit from students, and then you correct. So these are 6 ways of correcting errors, my friends. Now, your job now is to look at every way and think about advantages and disadvantages of every error correction technique, because nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Okay? Every technique has advantages and disadvantages. That's what I want you to think about. Advantages and disadvantages of every technique. Take your time, and once you're ready, raise your hands. Okay, right, let's talk. So let me go to Maryam Ismail. Maryam, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Maryam.
Hi.
Now, what about number 1, picture correction? What are the advantages and disadvantages?
I really admire this technique, as I use it clearly for students, especially the ones in lower levels. They can clearly see where's the problem, because it is hard for them to identify where exactly did I go wrong. So it is very nice. At the same time, with students, I found that it may cause some embarrassment, as like, oh, I said something wrong, and she showed me where is the problem in front of the students. So but I still prefer to use it. It's better than like delaying correction for them. Those type of students who are embarrassed, they still focus on it, like, oh, I said that, or they will point to another student and be like, you said that.
Well, thank you so much for your answer. Wonderful. Now, she said two important things about finger correction. She said, I love it because the students know where the mistake is. Yes, that's one of the advantages of finger correction. Simply, when you go, okay, and you say, I traveled from 3 years, and then you go from, okay, it's clear for students where the mistake is. That's an advantage. But then she talked about a disadvantage, which is, the student feels that I am correcting him. And she's right about that. And how do we write this when we're taking notes here? And I want you to write this down in the disadvantages. Write this phrase, this sentence: conversation breaks down. Someone might say, Shadi, how? Because you're no more talking to your students. You are correcting him now. Okay? And that's a disadvantage, of course, because now we are moving. Let's forget about traveling. We're not talking about traveling anymore. Now we're talking about error correction. That's a disadvantage. There is another advantage, which is self-correction. Because with this technique, you elicit from students. Like you say, I traveled from 3 years from, this is a way of eliciting. Because you want your student to give you, okay, to tell you about what the mistake is and how it should be corrected. So self-correction, that's another advantage, okay? But there is another disadvantage, that students don't know the type of the mistake. Like when you're pointing at this finger for the preposition from, they don't know what the type of mistake. Was it using a wrong preposition, or I should be using a go instead? Or was it my pronunciation? I mispronounced from. I mean, what was the problem exactly? You know what I mean? Right. Okay. Let's go to number 2 now, which is the use of terminology. And I want to listen again to advantages, disadvantages from your point of view. And let me go to Marina Hilmi. Marina, can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi, Marina.
I think it's good if the correct in the grammar, but if it's in vocabulary, they will search you, work or hard, they will confused.
Okay. Okay. Anything else that you would love to add, Marina?
I think for lower levels, it will be not clear enough because they will not, they can't, يعني can differentiate make difference between verb and subject.
Okay. Now, look at what Marina said. Very smart, very smart. She said it can be difficult. And that's wonderful. Yeah, because imagine that you're talking to lower level students and you're saying tense. Right? Okay, and then you're very confident and you're tense, and then he doesn't know what a tense is. You know what I mean? Right? So what if students don't know the terms I'm using? As Marina said, what if they don't know subject or verb or object? You know, I mean, like you said, it's a register. Oh, really? Do you think that your student know what a register is? You know what I mean? So that's a disadvantage. So sometimes it can be, unclear for students. That's one thing. The other thing, look at what she said. She said, when I say vocabulary, they might think that it was work or hard, or how do they know if it's a vocabulary mistake? And yeah, that's the problem. The location of the mistake is not clear like the previous one. In the previous one, in finger correction, we show the students exactly where the mistake is, but not in number 2. In number 2, I mean, we don't show students where the mistake is, right? I mean, they don't know. So it can be anywhere. So when I say grammar, what's grammar? So some students might think that the problem was with working, not was. So instead of changing you and say you were, okay, they don't say you were, okay, and then they start saying you was work, but it's even worse. You know what I mean, right? So bear that in mind. But do we have advantages? Yes, we have. Self-correction again, right? But still, we have the disadvantage of having the conversation broken down. Okay, so again, the conversation breaks down in this one. Now let's go to when I'm on Facebook, I shared with my friends. Okay, now repeat and pause, which is when I'm on Facebook, that's repeat and pause. So I would love to listen to your opinions. Let me go to Hanan. Hanan, can you unmute yourself now?
Hello there.
Hi. Hi,
How are
Hanan.
you? Nice to see you.
Fine.
Hanan from
Nice to
Morocco.
see you too. I know.
Okay. Oh, it's an
Okay.
interesting topic, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have an experienced trainer
Oh, it's my
attending the
pleasure,
sessions.
Mr. Shadi, my pleasure. So concerning it's sentence number 3, I guess. When I'm on Facebook, I shared. Sorry for the term. Yes. So concerning the advantages, I would say that it's a good way to raise student or learners' awareness to identify the mistake by saying, when I'm on Facebook, and you repeat and you pause so that you can point to the problem. So here it's much more towards learner-centered approach. And again, it's in decreasing teachers' talking time and giving students the opportunity maybe to identify the problem. However, I would say that some students won't be able to identify the problem, which means that here we need to put, this to highlight the form chat and chat. Maybe, I guess we shouldn't ignore at this stage. Yes, because, so sometimes having that giving the immediate feedback would be time saving. And of course, we wouldn't embarrass and make our students feel somehow frustrated. So I guess that's what I do with my students.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, look at what Hanan said. I mean, interesting, very interesting answer. She said, I love the fact that students would know where the mistake is. Because, because you will repeat it and stop directly before the mistake. It's like, when I'm on Facebook, So now there is no doubt for students that the mistake is in chat. However, they don't know the type of the mistake. It's the problem, So what is the problem? Was it my pronunciation? Was it my grammar? Should it be something else? Okay, so they don't know. Is it grammar? Is it pronunciation? Is it vocabulary? I should change the whole word. What is it exactly? That is the problem here. Again, it's not clear for them that it's a pronunciation problem, and they should say I chat instead of chat, right? Excuse my French, right? Again, another disadvantage that the conversation breaks down. So we're no more talking about Facebook and chatting. We're correcting mistakes now. One advantage is that there is self-correction. As Hanan said, it's kind of student-centered approach, because I want my student to correct themselves. Right, good, lovely. Now let's move to technique number 4, which is ask a question. Ice cream is my favorite dessert. And then you say something, oh, you mean desert is your favorite place. you love spending time in deserts. Okay, so you ask a question here. And I would love to know the advantages and disadvantages of this style. And let me, for this, ask Dua al-Mahdi. Dua, what do you think?
Hello, Dr. Shady. How are you?
Hi, Dua.
I think that this is a good way using the plenary mode when dealing with the students. It's a better way of eliciting their thinking and their ideas to give more information or to direct themselves to their mistakes. So in this way, we give them the chance to try to think of their answers and to try to correct themselves according to the question that the teacher asks.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Dua. I mean, look at what Dua said. It makes the students think, and I agree with him. Because when you ask this question, students start thinking to themselves, what went wrong in my sentence that made the teacher confused? Okay? It's like when one student say to you, my brother had an accident and he was damaged. So you say, oh, you mean your car was damaged? Okay, now the students start thinking about, why did the teacher think that I was talking about the car, not my brother? Okay, so that kind of stuff. And another advantage of this style is that it does not break the conversation now. So the conversation is still ongoing. So the students think that we're still having the conversation and talking about, ice cream and all that stuff. But look at what Hanan is saying. What if the student couldn't recognize the mistake? She's right. That's another disadvantage of this style. That some students, might not recognize that they made a mistake. So it has a problem with clarity. So it's good for thinking, but it's not guaranteed all the time, Right. Now let's move to the following one. What I enjoy in Hurghada is the wonderful beaches. Okay, now reformulation. And the teacher would correct by saying, oh, yeah, I mean, I enjoy the wonderful beaches as well. So you're repeating the word, but correctly. Now, what are the advantages versus the disadvantages of this? And let me give the floor to Muhammad Radwan. Muhammad.
Hi, Dr. Shadi.
Hi, Muhammad.
Nice to meet you, by the way, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak. Finally.
Absolutely welcome. Oh, sorry about that.
I want to say that we have this advantage for ask a question and another advantage for reformulation. I think ask a question, we will find more mistakes when I ask students, but it takes time. When I ask him another question, I will receive more mistakes, so it takes time, I think. But this reformulation technique, I think it doesn't take time to just say the correction, and this is the most important thing. As I have said, as you have mentioned, that we have to keep our goal or aim just clear, and we need to go on our session. So if we have the session for correction only, it will take time, and also we will waste our time for just correct our mistakes. That's what I need to say. So this is the advantage. I want to compare the two techniques, ask a question and reformulation. I think this is more correct to use reformulation other than ask a question. I think this would be better for me to use this way other than the previous one.
Thank you so much. Right, now, look at what Muhammad said. Muhammad said, well, I love it because it is fast. Well, he's right about that. Reformulation is fast. It doesn't waste time at all, right? But in a chat box, I noticed that Mariam Ismail is writing, but it will not clarify the mistake sometimes. So she's trying to say, sometimes the students would not even notice that you were correcting them. And she's right about that. That's another disadvantage of reformulation. Now, you might say to your students, yes, me too. I love the wonderful beaches there. They say, and then the student would surprise and say, yeah, you love the beaches there as well. Okay, right, bloody hell. Right. So again, sometimes correction might go unnoticed. And that's the disadvantage of, okay, reformulation. But one advantage is the conversation does not break down. It's still ongoing, right? It's not embarrassing because it looks as if you are still having a conversation with your students. Now, let me go to, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Let's go to Javad. And Javad, what about the last one?
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Is that correct, your name, Javad?
Yes, yes. I am Javad from Iran. Well, sir, as we
Okay,
know, corrective feedback starts from implicit domain and goes to explicit domain. To me, delayed correction is a kind of explicit feedback or explicit corrective feedback that we provide to students. And therefore, well, if you ask me, I would say after this type of correction, we also need to ask the students in a sort of think loud protocol and ask them, when I corrected you, what was your thought about it? Did you understand what part of the sentence you made wrong? And we need to know which part they have made the mistake on. According to Ishmael's noticing hypothesis, we need to ask the students what part was problematic for them in order to be able to correct them. So this type of correction to me is very helpful because it directly mentions the erroneous part that the students are making mistake about. And if it is done as it is supposed to be, I think it could be a very good, let's say, corrective feedback that we can provide to our students.
Thank you so much, Javad, for your
Welcome,
answer.
sir. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much. Now, Javad mentioned the noticing hypothesis by Richard Schmidt. And the noticing hypothesis, it refers to the fact that students tend to notice things or linguistic features more, okay, when they learn about them. Like when it is very, very clear for them, for example, the structure of a tense, they tend to notice it when people are using it in reality, okay? And he is suggesting the idea of also checking the other forms of corrections that we used during the lesson in the delayed correction, asking in order to check whether they were able to notice the mistakes or not. Very interesting idea indeed. And I would add to this that delayed correction, one of the advantage of it that you have all the time in the world, okay, to explain and talk about the mistakes and why they happened. However, there are disadvantages as well, which is, time consuming. That is one a disadvantage of delayed correction. It can be a stage on its own. So that is one thing. Also, another disadvantage of delayed correction is that students sometimes forget about the mistakes they made. So they think, I mean, when did I say that? Because it's not on the spot, right? However, another advantage is that the conversation does not break down. You do not affect the fluency of your students by interrupting them and correcting them. Right. Now, my friends, let me move now. And we still have a couple of slides before we finally end this session. And I have here a couple of questions. And I want you to think about these questions. If we're talking about speaking and error correction, question number one, what should you start with when you are giving, when you are handling feedback on a speaking activity? And the second one, how should you handle language feedback? I want you to think about these two questions for a minute and raise your hands if you think you're ready to discuss these 2 points. And let me go to the lovely bird. I have someone called the lovely bird. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, it's me, Dr. Shadi. Thank you. Ahmed, by the way.
And what's Ahmed? Welcome, Ahmed.
Welcome, Doctor. When speaking an error correction, I think we, of course, after delaying and letting students discuss, I don't need to correct them directly while they are talking. And I start with what we call content feed. I give them content. I correct the content itself, the information or the ideas. And then I handle the language. What is meant by pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, like that.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. And let me ask Abdulaziz Hassan. Abdulaziz, can you please answer these 2 questions?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of agree with Mr. Ahmed. I'm going to start with the speaking activity first because it's going to be my main idea. However, here's what I do when there is a mistake that has occurred in the useful language stage for a reason or something like this. I would like to take a note and write it down on my notebook and then clarify the language feedback, of course, after the content feedback, making sure that all ideas have been clarified. Thus, I'm going to make sure that all the delayed, I'm going to start with the delayed mistakes first, and then I'm going to continue correcting the language feedback of what happened exactly in the speaking stage.
Thank you so much, Abdulaziz. Now, let me comment on what our friend said. And I love what Amira Hamdan, is it Hamadan, has added in a chat box. Thank you, Amira, for adding that. Now, look, our friend said that they would start with content feedback. Now, we have 2 kinds of feedback, content and language. And we have to start with commenting on the content. Like, students have been speaking for a while. Don't just, comment on their mistakes or the language. Comment on their ideas first, right? So that's for number 1. Someone might say, Shadi, how do we give content feedback? By asking simple questions like, tell me something interesting you've heard from your friend. And then he said, my friend said he wanted to travel to France. So you don't stop there. So, why? Why did he say that? Did he tell you? And then it's a kind of conversation. In the second one, and I would also take on board what Amira said, we shouldn't be talking only about mistakes. We should start by praising students. Like what? Like usually successful usage and unsuccessful usage. Try to comment on both. So if you heard your students using some wonderful expressions and some good structures, list that on the board and talk about it, not only mistakes. And then on the second side, talk about unsuccessful usage of language. So you talk about both things that went well and things that were not, very successful. Right. Now, quickly, let me go to writing and error correction. And we have 4 different types of feedback before we end today's webinar. Direct feedback, indirect feedback, collective feedback, personalized feedback. And I would like you to think about these, take your time, then tell me what is meant by each type of feedback and what is the relation between each type and the skill of writing. Okay? So raise your hands once you feel you're ready.
Direct feedback. I think that when you mean that I have to tell him the mistake itself correctly without giving him question or pause or using the finger, the 5 ways that you explained to us. So when I give him the direct, like, you have mistaken the tense, so please think about this one. That's what I'm thinking about, the direct feedback, clear and direct to the student or to the mistake. Indirect, when we use the ways that we talk here today, or we talk about. Not direct, but it's easy to get it out or figure it out. Actually, I do like.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Isra. And let me say something. Well, Isra is right about what she said. She said direct feedback is when I correct directly. And she's right about that. Think about writing. A student wrote a paragraph and you want to give feedback. You can simply, like the student said something like she were instead of she was, and then you can go just circle it and you can correct it. You say she was. That's direct feedback. Why direct feedback? You correct it directly. That's it. Indirect feedback is when you start using correction codes, for example. What are correction codes? Like, you go to she were, and then up there you write G for grammar. Then you're not correcting now. You wrote G for grammar so that your student would go back home and try to correct himself. This is indirect. So when you use direct feedback, you correct directly. When you use indirect feedback, you might just underline and then get your students to discover the mistake and underline it. If you want to make it less challenging, you use correction codes. So you tell your students about the type of the mistake, and it goes like that. Now let's move to collective and personalized. And so let's go to Maryam Ismail. Yes, Maryam.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Maryam.
Hi. So I believe collective feedback is when everyone is sharing their opinion about something we have written. For an example, the way I do it in the classroom is that I give each paragraph someone have written to a different person, and they or make them sit together and share together what they wrote, and they would give each other feedback on what they have done, and I'm just going to observe and see what's going on. This goes for like written, sometimes speaking, and so on. Especially for presentations, I always encourage them to give each other comments, specifically or directly telling them to give constructive feedback. Personalized would, I think personalized is more direct to the person. I think I don't really understand that one. I think I mixed it up.
Well, no problem. Thank you for your opinion. Let's go to Yusuf Al-Basyouni. Let me listen to his opinion. You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Hello, Mr. Shadi.
Hi, what's your name?
Hello, Mr.
Hi.
So, when I talk to collective feedback, I think that it's depends on the correction, the mistake in general, and not detected in the one students or one mistake. We talk about the general mistake in the context or in the or anyway in whatever. يعني. Personalized feedback, I think I used self-reflection for the student to detect the mistake. He will determine the mistake and say what and use the self-reflection to correct it. So when I said personalized feedback, it's not like direct feedback. It's another.
Thank you, Shaynat. Thank you so much. Now let me say something here. I mean, Shaynat is very close to the nature of these two. Now, collective feedback. It's not about one. It's actually for busy teachers. You're a busy teacher. you have 15 students, for example, in your IELTS class. All of them wrote essays, but you don't have time to give personalized feedback for each one. So what you do, you read the writings, you collect all the mistakes, you put their mistakes on one sheet, one big sheet, okay? And then next time when you meet them, you hand them the sheet, you say that this is your feedback, you have sentences written here, please correct, okay, the mistakes in these sentences. So that would be collective feedback and indirect at the same time. You can give them collective feedback and make it direct. Like what? Like that sheet, but you corrected everything for them and you give it to all of them. So we call that collective feedback. Personalized feedback is amazing, but the downside of it that it takes a lot of time, because you have to read the 15 essays written by your students, and you need to put feedback on each essay. And that feedback could be direct or it could be indirect. So now two ways, collective and personalized. Personalized is for each one, and it takes time. Collective for all your students, okay? One paper collecting their mistakes together and you give it back to them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I came to the end of this session, and it was really great meeting all of you.